Hello everyone and welcome. I am here with Todd Michlitsch, a developer for Star Wars Imperial Assault. How you doing?
Not too bad.
I'm very excited because we have some juicy new models in front of us and stat cards in front of us. We're going to talk about a little bit about the campaign, a little bit about Skirmish. And so effectively we have Heart of the Empire, which is a new box that is set to come out at some point in the future.
Yep.
And we're going to dive into some of these cards. Before we do though, if you would like to receive your Imperial Assault expansions and releases automatically, we now have a subscription service for that. So check that out. You can sign up, automatically get everything as it comes out, and it's a really convenient way just to stay locked in. So without further ado, let's dive in. Heart of the Empire, which immediately evokes, there was an objective set in the Star Wars LCG called Heart of the Empire.
Sure.
Coruscant, which is the heart of the Empire. And I'm just picturing a lot of things. Star Destroyers, I'm picturing Emperor Palpatine, I'm picturing Darth Vader. So let's kick it off with the man himself, Emperor Palpatine, finally. When this game came out in what, 2014?
I think so, yeah.
So we are now going on almost 3 years without the Dark Lord himself. I'm very excited. So 8 cost, and this is this both the Skirmish and the campaign version?
Yep.
I'm assuming he's going to be a primary villain in the Actually, you know what? Before we dive into Palpatine, let's back it up. Give me the elevator pitch on Heart of the Empire.
So Heart of the Empire is a campaign structured around the immediate Imperial sphere of influence surrounding Coruscant. There is a rumor of a very powerful artifact that many powerful people are trying to get their hands on. The rebels need to dive in and see if they can find it before anyone else does.
Fascinating. So there's an artifact on the loose and we're hunting it down. Very cool. And so obviously at the heart of the Empire you have Palpatine, but you also have politics. You have sneak around, you have guard, you have all sorts of wild stuff. So Palpatine himself, 8 points, Sith Master, unique, Imperial, 13 health, 3 speed, so he's a little slow. Black defense, so no dodges here. Attack is a red and a green. So okay stat lines, 8 points is nice.
Yep.
Like this is a lot of times the uniques have been higher cost points. Right. And so lower here means he can fit with some stuff. Pierce 3, just period.
Yep.
All the time. And he can surge for +1 damage. So pretty fair stat line.
Yeah, we don't expect him to get into combat very often, but when he does, he's scary.
He's gonna do some
Don't
pain.
stand next to him.
Interesting.
And you'll be okay.
Okay, so let's get the feel for how he's gonna act. So we have Emperor just as an ability. Once during your activation, you can choose another figure within 4 spaces.
Yep.
That figure may interrupt or perform an attack.
Right.
So what's the idea here?
The idea is he is the top of the food chain in the Empire. He is the best officer. When he says jump, you jump. When he says shoot, you shoot. No questions asked. Doesn't cost him an action. You just shoot.
So he's kind of like a mega officer here.
Yeah.
Just once per turn, choose something within 4. They just get to attack. That's pretty sick. We also have Tempt. At the start of your activation, a figure of your choice suffers a damage, but gains something I've never seen.
Sure.
So what's this icon all about?
So this is the first instance of what we've called power tokens.
Okay.
The basic idea is that some conditions, focus most notably, were so strong that we had difficulty awarding them. So we've broken down combat awards into the basic dice results: damage, surges, blocks,
Instead of
and
the whole
evades.
die itself.
Exactly. So you get these tokens that you can spend when you declare an attack to add a damage to that attack.
Okay.
So it's a noticeable difference, but a little flatter.
And so technically that could, in this case, is a damage, but it could be potentially a surge or
surge,
range.
blocks, evades, or some people are lucky enough to get their choice.
Okay. Well, that's cool. So you get a little token, and is there any? You say there's a max on those or no?
Yeah, there's a cap of 2. We don't
2 of those tokens.
2 of any power token. We don't want you floating 5 tokens around the board. Tokens on the board is already messy.
I like caps in general. Prevents things from getting out of hand. Because I could easily see, you have like 6 of these.
Right.
And it's like, I have 6 damage on whoever I'm going after next, and you just Ace Vader with like someone who's.
Something we also didn't talk about is that there's a limit 1 per attack.
Oh.
So there's no incentive to build up 6.
Okay.
But even still, don't do it.
even if there were, we're not letting it happen.
Yep.
Okay, very cool. And of course, I don't think it would be Emperor Palpatine without this last ability, which for an action, you can do a thing called Force Lightning, which is choose a figure within 4 spaces and line of sight. So you have to be able to see them. That figure suffers 3 damage, period.
Yep.
And becomes weakened.
Yes.
Which is a condition that was introduced a box or 2 back, which is great. Each figure adjacent to that figure also suffers 1 damage.
Yep.
So he comes in, does an auto 3.
Yep.
No defensive roll. Also weakens that target, and also anything next to it just takes the damage.
Yes.
So where do you see Palpatine, specifically for Skirmish, fitting into the Imperial ranks, besides at the top?
I mean, the immediate instinct is to play him with the heaviest hitter you can, right? So pulling out an ATST, the new ATGP.
Because they get a free attack, right?
Exactly.
Doesn't matter. ATSTs can go crazy.
Yep, the most dice you can throw at a time. But at the same time, he is low speed. He's limited to a range of 4. And so you've got to put something around that can either protect Palpatine or is mobile enough to get back to him when it's his turn to go.
Like some royal guards?
Sure. But it's hard to set up those melee attacks. So.
It is.
So.
But you could easily see one royal guard right next to him just being...
Yes. Yep.
Which...
And I mean, I've had plenty of games where I just fire off elite stormtroopers, and it is totally fine.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I think you really don't even have to build too heavy around it, because even I almost think a ranged character maybe benefits more.
Yes.
And there's any number of...
It's just easier to use, right? Like, I'd rather use the ability for sure twice than maybe get it once.
Yeah, but you could also see, I mean, if he just gets to walk up and give Vader a free attack out of nowhere, or any number of other characters. So very, very fitting for Palpatine. What about in the campaign? Obviously, I think the ability to do the damage directly and the weakened and then the AoE damage basically is a problem. It's not a bad problem.
Yeah,
but he's going to be a good enemy, is what I'm saying.
It tends to be easier to play around those types of effects in campaign where there are just fewer of your figures to manage. Anyway, it's harder to get him out with a bunch of stuff triggering the best attack that you want, so it's easier to play around the type of ability. But he's still plenty scary.
I was going to say, for only 8 points is kind of my thing. I know in the campaign it's like, as a huge just Vader fan, it's like, I am never spending 18 on this unless the campaign just says put Vader into play.
Right. I mean, that's true for things that cost anything more than 6 anyway.
Yeah,
they're hard to get on the board. And so we try to get good use out of them as set pieces and make them, these days, you can bring them along if you want to.
Sure. Well, I want to move along here. Enough talking about the old man, but I've been informed that there's always 2. So next up, we have Maul.
Yep.
And I actually was reading through this card and just like, oh, okay, 7 costs. So he's a little cheaper than Palpatine, 12 health, a little less health, a little faster, 4 speed.
Yep.
Black defense die, okay. He's got a red-yellow instead of red-green, like Palpatine had. Okay, +1 damage built in, pierce 3 with a surge, okay. And about that time, I looked up and I noticed green. and this is what I wasn't ready for, which is, he is actually, what is that? I call it scum because that's what it is in pretty much
I believe the
every game
term
I
is
play.
mercenary, but I call it scum half the time.
So
as well.
we'll say scum. He's a scum unit and which I was not ready for. So now scum has a force user.
Yes.
Just built-in force user, which is the first time ever, which is cool. He's also got, as you might imagine, double-bladed fury. Before you declare an attack, choose 1. This attack gains reach and cleave 2. Jesus. Or you become focused. So before he attacks, he either gets a green.
Yes.
So now he becomes red, yellow, green, which is strong. 3 dice is good. Or instead, he can do a melee at range. Not range,
range
but
1.
at range 1.
Or 2.
And gets cleave 2.
Right.
Which means not only his range for the attack is higher, but now his range for the cleave is higher.
Yes, exactly.
So he can swoop around and do that. That's pretty good.
Yep. We try to make him a little harder to play around.
Yeah, and that's kind of the balance of melee in general. That's the thing with Vader out of the base set was he's just very easy to walk around.
If I want to respect him, I can.
Yeah, and you should. He's also got, for a surge, stock. I like to get through all this so we can have the context of them all. But stock prey. After the stack resolves, you may gain 2 movement points and you said command token? Power token.
A power token, yeah.
A power token for a damage. So you can spend a surge to save a damage for the next round and gain 2 movement, which is great. And then sustained by rage, which is unreal good. You cannot recover damage. If you have not resolved an activation this round, you cannot be defeated.
Yep.
So effectively, even the turn you kill him, he's going to get to go.
Right.
So you get max damage on him. He still gets his one last go at the Gusto.
Notably, at the end of rounds, when you have initiative and you're about to lose it, he still makes a good diving piece because if your opponent retaliates, you're still going to get your activation that round.
Sure, which is very, very cool. So what role do you see Maul playing in skirmish in particular?
I think that he's going to be a deep striker coming out of the mercenaries. He can be a build-around piece for mercenary force users, even though there aren't very many.
There aren't a ton of them at this point.
You can temporary alliance a few over, and you can make that happen if you want to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we just tried to make him well-statted. Most of the things we make these days, we just want to make sure that if you like that character, you can play it.
Yeah, and he kind of feels like him, right? He's got the double-bladed fury. He's also got Stained by Rage, which is so good, especially.
I'm excited to see that played. I think that's different from the things we've done before.
Awesome. Well, I think he's great, and again, like I'm really loving these like 8 and 7 point characters because you can have the unique person or two in your squad, and then fill it out with a whole unit of stormtroopers or in this case bounty hunters or whatever you want to do. All right, well, next I want to move to another Dark Lord of the Sith, and it's not directly a stat card, but it's an update to a character that has me as excited about Imperial Assault as maybe ever. So I started playing this game when it first came out, and at the time, before the activation rules have changed where you can pass, and before a lot of stuff had come out, I was having a lot of fun just brutalizing people with Vader. You know, it's like the scene at the end of Rogue One. He just comes in, he's slicing people up. Right. And then people start respecting that, and then all of a sudden Vader stops killing people. Yes. And so we saw it recently with the IG-88 upgrade that effectively made him cheaper and did all this stuff. Yep. So now we have Driven by Hatred, which is unique. It's a skirmish upgrade, Imperial, -5 points. Yeah. -5.
Let's just get that out of the way.
Seems good. It's an attachment, and it can only go on Darth Vader, Lord of the Sith, which is from the original box. Yep. He gets +1 damage, period. He loses brutality. Right. So originally, when he attacks, he could actually attack 2 models. Yes. The problem with that is that he has to be within melee range of 2 models. Right. Which is
exactly what we talked about. It's too easy to play around if you decide you need to play around it.
Yeah, you just run.
Yep, exactly.
and don't die, which is really thematic, but a problem. Yes. Anyways, while attacking, you can reroll an attack dice. So he still has the 2 red-yellow. Yep. So still with a reroll now and a plus damage. Right. He's going to hit hard when he hits.
He loses brutality, but his main attack is going to be worth it.
It's going to be still brutal.
Yes.
Yeah. He also has, at the end of each round, though, move up to 2 spaces. Movement's good. He's kind of slow. Then you may use Force Choke or perform an attack. When you declare this attack, remove a die from your attack pool. Right. So effectively, he has +1 damage on both attacks. On the second one, instead of being brutality, where it has to happen there, he instead at the end of the round gets to move. Yep. +1 damage, but -1 die. Right. Am I missing anything? Or Force Choke, which is the classic.
Yeah. If you're not close enough, if your opponent does get away from you, you can
if
still
I Force Choke during the round, can I still use it? So you can Force Choke twice around?
Yep.
So good. So what? Tell me about designing these cards. I mean, you're designing upgrades that go back because you've learned a lot in 3 years on skirmish in general. What's behind this?
So, like we talked about, I think we talked about with the IG-88 upgrade, we found ourselves in a spot where Vader was trying to do too many things at once.
You're paying the points for all those things.
You are. So you're paying a lot of points as if he's cruising around the board murdering 2 people every turn. But like we talked about, he doesn't actually do that if your opponent decides he doesn't want to let you do that. So we've kind of normalized the effects. Say Vader is worth X points. He needs to get X points of value. So he's harder to play around. So that's the first thing we did. And then there's also the issue of just costing 18 points is too high. At 18 points, you can't build the rest of an army around him, and your opponent can still just decide to play around him.
And if they do, the other 22 points can't really do enough.
Exactly. Yeah. So we've bumped him back down the cost chain a little bit and made his average use case a little more average.
And so where do you think this puts him on the skirmish scale of goodness, right? Like if you had a tier system, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, where are you hoping he lands here?
I'm hoping he lands tier 1. That's the goal. I think he will be there initially. People will figure out how to play against him. The end of round effect, the end of round timing there, I think is going to catch people by surprise for a bit. So he needs to stand out there until the end of the round, and then he gets his extra value. Sure. People will either misplay that ability or misplay around that ability for a little while, and Vader will look better than he is. But when things settle down, I think he'll still be probably bottom of tier 1, top of tier 2, I think is what I expect. But I'm willing to be surprised. I honestly, he could be higher.
I honestly think even just for as hard as he is to hit and do damage to and remove, even at 13 points for the 1 attack with the plus damage and the reroll and Force Choke. Yep. Pretty good.
It's stomachable.
Like that's actually very strong, right? He can literally go in and just wipe out a lot of units. Yep. And then if you do have a lot of units, a lot of the objectives that make you kind of pile into an area, he can just walk in and
exactly. You still have to respect him.
Yeah, you absolutely have to. If anything has to exist in a Star Wars game, respect for Vader has to exist.
Yep. So that is back.
All right. So we covered Emperor Palpatine. We covered Maul. We covered Driven by Hatred, which is a new upgrade to Vader. So it would only make sense to talk about his apprentice. So let's jump over to Ahsoka Tano herself. the Rebel preview for this video, which is 8 cost, Force user, leader, spy. I love Ahsoka, just so we're clear. So I'm also pumped about this. This whole wave was made for me. I can't even explain it. 12 health, 4 speed, a white defense die, so she can dodge. Attack is a blue, green, green.
Yes.
3 dice attacker are good. Surge for +2 damage. Surge for Pierce 3. Surge for gain a damage power token.
Yep.
So immediately before I even get to anything else, I feel like she can actually do a decent amount of damage.
Right. Right. We've come to the understanding that melee units inherently risk something when they make attacks, and so those attacks need to be a little bit stronger.
Yeah, I mean, they're in the engagement.
Yep, they can't hide.
And they also, positionally, they're kind of out of position by having to melee, right? Yep. Which is what we've seen with the trooper style meta, just kind of hanging around. All right, so she also gets an action, which is Force Leap. Place your figure in an empty space within 6 spaces. Incredible. Which is great, because you can obviously, like, your opponent can't really block your movement.
Right.
It's very fitting for Ahsoka because she's very acrobatic.
Right.
And like dances around, jumps over people, and off of walls and all kinds of stuff. So that's actually just incredible as an ability and perfectly thematic. I'm happy about that. We have Vigor. At the start of your activation, you may gain 2 movement points, even faster now. Or you can gain a block power token.
Right.
So you can either play defense or get out of the way.
Yep.
Or get in the way.
Exactly.
And last but not least, we have Twin Sabers. While attacking, you can reroll all attack dice or force the defender to reroll all defense dice.
Right.
So I love this card. I'm very excited that she's only 8 cost. What was the thought going into designing Ahsoka? What are you really trying to capture here?
Ahsoka was largely thematic. We knew we wanted to nail. She's such an iconic piece of the story that we wanted to make sure that she felt like herself on the board.
She needs to be bouncing around and all that kind of stuff.
Yep. So we tried to make her very nimble, and we squeezed those abilities in. And then on top of that, we just needed to make her playable, right?
That's a goal.
it is, right? So like we talked about, some of the older figures kind of weren't.
Yeah, they're just a little too expensive.
Exactly. So these days, when we make someone who is supposed to be special, we need to make sure they're special.
That's awesome.
So she is, yeah.
And where do you think she ranks in the Rebel tiers?
For her, I don't know. She's a little fragile. She kind of plays the role of a deep striker. If there's a priority target you need to take out, she'll go get it, but then she's back there all alone.
Yeah.
So I think if there is a Force user melee shell that can support her, she might be top tier. I think if she's off doing her own thing without any support, she's probably not good enough.
Sure.
So we'll see what the players do.
Yeah. Well, and I think the traits I think are what's screaming out most for me.
Yep.
Which is you get Force user, leader, and spy.
Yes.
So she's going to be really great at making that command deck flesh out like you want it to, and I think she's going to be great at certain objectives.
Yes, exactly.
Her movement and ability to get places is very strong because she can go 12, and 6 of those can be over a lot of things.
Yep.
Like over a pit. It's like she can just
Yeah.
dance.
If she decides she doesn't want to fight, she can be anywhere on the map.
Yeah, which is I love the idea of like her sneaking in, acing like an officer or some unit, and then just getting out of dodge, or even just like getting to a terminal that you couldn't have gotten to on that opening turn. What about in campaign?
In campaign, she'll behave a lot more tame, right? It's less likely that you need to sprint with an ally in campaign.
Yeah.
At that point, she ends up relying a lot more on the ability to generate her own block tokens to stay alive. She's really good at taking mid-tier attacks, because if she overkills, she gets that damage token back for the next attack.
Sure.
She's just quality.
Sure. Okay, cool. Well, give me a. That's all the like stat cards we're gonna cover. But as far as the campaign, we have some heroes we're gonna talk about for a second.
Yep.
Anything about the campaign that you're excited for players to get to experience that may be different than past campaigns?
I think the biggest thing with this campaign is that we got to go to Coruscant. We have a brand new tile type, and we've got
tile type. Intriguing.
Right. So it's just a terrain type. But what that let us do was build a tile set that looks like Coruscant.
That's so cool.
So we have a lot of neon lights, a lot of views from up above the city. So the campaign will just feel different when you put it on the table.
Very cool.
On top of that, there's a small element of player-driven progression.
Okay.
So at the end of every mission, it's going to ask you, how would you like to proceed in the storyline? And that will determine what mission you play next.
Instead of the like win-loss tree.
Right. So
that's a big deal.
Yeah, it serves two purposes. One is it gives you that thematic control over your own experience, and the other, it gives you a mechanical control over the product. So if I make you 10 missions and you only play 5, now you can play those other 5 the second time you play.
Instead of just being dictated by winning.
Exactly. You can just choose to see the rest of the game.
That's awesome. Very cool. So it's a little more choose your own adventure than win-loss tree, which
Right.
was a cool system in the first place. Anything else about the box that's worth mentioning?
Just get excited for it. It's going to be a good campaign.
Yeah, it's a lot of awesome stuff. So I'm going to let you pronounce the name of this
Sure.
here hero.
Kotun for all.
Tune. So it's not Ton, it's Tune.
It might be Ton, but we've been calling her Kotun.
Kotun. 12 health, 4 endurance, 4 speed, 1 black defense, arms distribution. So for a surge or a strain, use the start or end of your activation. You gain, look, here we go, power token, a damage or a block power token. Then another friendly figure within 3 spaces can also gain a block or an attack or a damage token. Limit once per activation. It's also a stockpile. When a friendly figure within 3 spaces interacts with a crate, that figure may draw 5 supply cards and choose 1 non-valuable card to keep, shuffling the others into the deck. Right. So. What slot is she filling?
She is meant to be almost like a fixed Gideon, if you want to think of it that way. Someone you can put in your team.
Yeah, someone's not as ridiculous
yeah,
as Gideon.
Yeah. What we've found is that the hybrid role tends to work better. So she is a hybrid leader and fighter.
Cool.
So she is at her most effective when she's helping her teammates and helping herself at the same time. And she's also a great showcase for the new power tokens and how effective they can be in a campaign. Sure.
Which is to me, I naturally lean towards the skirmish side of things, just from what I enjoy playing. But it is always fascinating because you have this very well built out other side of the game.
Right.
And it's really not the other side, is the game itself that I think a lot of people play. So considering those power tokens in that environment is actually quite intriguing. Because I feel like in campaign, it's even more useful.
It opens a lot of doors. We can write a lot of triggers whose effects can be more complex because I don't have to worry about 80 points of figures on the board. It gives us some new things to play with.
Sure. All right, and we also have Jared Kelvin. Says with Jax. So he looks like he has a little droid.
He does. He comes on board with a companion.
That's awesome. It looks almost like a Wally type. Or not Wally, Eve from Wally.
Sure, yep.
Anyways, droid mastery, 2 strain, used during or immediately before your activation. If J4X7 is not in play, to put J4X7 into play in an adjacent space.
Right.
J4X7 activates at the start or end of your activation. So he actually gets to pop out a droid, which I don't see, but
he
I'm
does.
sure he's
I don't have it with. It's a companion token.
Yeah. Poor Jax. Parry, while defending, you may exhaust one of your melee weapons to apply +1 block or +1 surge cancel to defense results. Is there a proper term for that?
Evade.
Evade. I knew it. I knew there was a name. 10 health, 5 endurance, 4 speed, 1 black defense die. So what about him? What mix of roles do you see him filling in for these campaign groups?
He's intended to be the Star Wars equivalent of like the druid class.
Okay.
And he gets in there with his fists, and he's got a friend to help him.
He has those little like knife things on his hands that look pretty
He's got some vibro claws right out of the gates.
He's got his little buddy.
He does.
Well, that's cool. What's your favorite card out of the box? And I say favorite implicitly because I don't want to say what's the best.
Right.
And you can take favorite any direction you want. It could be something you're most excited about, and you can change this answer by the next time we talk.
I think I'm actually most excited for the Vader. I regret the first Worlds when the people who played Vader were upset, rightfully, that he did not live up to his name, and I think that might change.
Cool. So just the idea of having Vader back on the table, especially at skirmish tournaments.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Well, there's a lot for me to be super pumped about here. I'm excited for Vader to potentially get back on the table, to get Palpatine on the table for the first time, to play Ahsoka as well. But hearing you talk about the tiles and the theme of Coruscant and the city, I've been talking with my brother a lot and a couple of my friends about doing a massive campaign push once the next box comes out.
Sure.
So the fact that Heart of the Empire is the next box has me legitimately stoked, because this is a theme and this is a part of Star Wars I love exploring. Something that really came from the Thrawn books, where he explores Coruscant for the first time.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Todd, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem.
Anything you'd like to say to the community before we skip out of here?
Have fun.
Well, there you have it. Have fun, and we'll see you guys on future Imperial Assault videos. Until then, keep playing.